Thank you very much for your warm welcome. Words cannot fully express how deeply grateful I am to be here. It was a long way, very, very long journey to get here. It was one that made me recognize how, what it takes to be here in this present moment at this time. It took much more than a visa. It took much more than traversing 3 time zones and jumping 3 planes. It took much more than all this to be here. It takes grit, actually. It takes courage. It takes a peculiar sense of direction. I think a thrilling sense of adventure to come all the way from Africa to the land down under. And I should say that, thank you. I should say it also took a healthy dose of bladder control to be here. Being a child of the continent of Africa and having had the privilege to speak in many different contexts, I've noticed that the politically correct thing to do before you start speaking is to say, I bring greetings from Africa. It's just beautiful and indigenous to do that and all nice and convenient. However, there's a problem with saying that because one realizes that, when you ask the question, which Africa are you talking about? You realize that there are many Africas. For instance, I think I have slides, don't I? Yes. Yes, and Manish is supposed to help me. So please, just help me put your hands together for Manish as he... Not sure where it is. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I really have to show you these slides. It's very important. I spent all night making it well. So. Yes, thank you. It's all beautiful, I hope. I was speaking about Africa. That there are many Africas, not just one Africa. Now, there is the romanticized view of Africa. I think we inherited that from Hollywood, the one with feverish dances, intoned syllables, sacred drumming, orange-hinted landscapes. That Africa, the one that has the nerve to insist that the gods must be crazy. That Africa. And then there is the Africa of steel and asphalt and cascading towers of smoke, and the one cordoned off by Wall Street, the one enchanted by the Golden Arches, the one that is animated by glittery shopping malls. That is the Africa that most people never get to hear about, apart from the ones that we see in probably Lion King. Now, I'm sure you recognize these landscapes, don't you?
There's the Africa of
yes.
Broken technologies.
Okay.
Not here, it's not up there.
Okay, keep pushing it forward.
We have it up there.
Yes, it is. I was saying, yes, that the Africas that I speak about, in these Africas, we send our children, most of you probably have never been to Africa, we send our children to little boxes we conveniently call schools. We exchange value with thinly compressed pieces of fiber. For entertainment, we sit in front of a glow box that brings no heat, but that tells us stories about how we are never enough. And, when we're angry with the government, when we're angry with our governments, we listen to indigenous tunes from homegrown bands, music bands like the Beatles. And during Christmas, out of a compulsion to do so, than any sense that it would happen, we sing, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. The lands I speak of are your own, because you recognize them. But unlike your own lands, ours have a difference. Our streets are not as beautiful as yours. They are broken and often left in a state of disrepair. In the land specifically called or Nigeria, defined by the nation state we call Nigeria, electricity supply is so eclectic, is so epileptic, that we scream in the pain of heightened suspense when the bulb comes on. Our streets are littered with the promises of the normal. Politicians with V signs on their fingers who do not know us. Our farmers are slaves to totalitarian systems that promise food for all as a pretext for cheap publicity and the perpetuation of the golden profit imperative. Year after year, our governments and conventional religious institutions tell us things will get better. Keep walking, keep calm, and think positive. So we hold ourselves hand in hand, heart next to heart, and await something better, feeding our hope in the system. But our unflattering landscapes moan under the weight of our hope. They whisper to us a shocking tune. This is the time to lose hope. So I'm here to speak about hope, and more specifically, losing hope. Sometime early this year, I sat with strange-looking men who live and practice shamanic arts on the fringes of society, in the borderlands of despair. As a clinical psychologist, I had quickly grown disenchanted with my practice, which seemed to be a commoditized, tongue-in-cheek legitimization of modern civilization and its discontents, a way of entrenching the status quo by patronizingly pathologizing the exception, a way of taming possibility, bursting with a restless quest for alternatives. I decided to move out of my convenient spaces and beat a path down to their unbecoming shacks, the unbecoming shacks of these old and mysterious shamanic healers. I sat with one of them in a session, and I asked him, "What do you know?" The unfortunate thing is that I don't even speak my own language. I'm just wearing my something that is indigenous to us. I do not speak my language, so I'm a victim of this whole thing. Ashamed I could not speak my language, and I was speaking through an interpreter. I said, "What do you know that we in the West-inspired world seem to have forgotten? How can we live healthier lives, happier lives?" And this is what they said in essence. He said in essence, "You have forgotten that everything is alive, and you have rested in your faith that your pills will solve all your problems. Your modern projects have chased away the spirits, so we have to go deep into the forest to find them again. But you will find them again. You will find new ways of living when you find the courage to embrace the dark and lose your way." Ladies and gentlemen, the Africa I come from, the one I poetically identified, ironically identified, is the dark continent indeed. But this darkness is not the darkness of incompetence and inadequacy. It is the darkness of beauty, the darkness that can be found in a mother's womb, where the swoosh of blood and shadow conspire to make a new dance of life. We do not recognize it, but our disenchantments are our greatest treasures, our most faithful allies. By our disenchantments, of course, I refer to our collective pain. Our stories, the memories, that is often born by apparently negative, all too familiar feelings of despair, of disgust, anger, boredom, failure, rank cynicism, irritation, depression. Most of the time, we're taught through our cultural conditioning that we must treat these feelings as militant viruses that must be spotted quickly and disarmed. We're told that there's something wrong with us if we become too negative, if we forget our place, if we cannot see that people are working hard to give us the good life, and we're offered easy ways out of these issues by giving us pills. They offer us ways out of these feelings, the painfulness of these feelings, through the adoptions of labels, through feeding off the glamour of the celebrity culture, and most of all, through the spectacle of hope. But other traditions, which I am privileged to be in touch with, such as those of the shaman that I met, suggest to us that the universe, what we conveniently call the universe, is fragile, indeterminate, arbitrary, playful, and connected. It is sacred all around, and it is alive. our pains, our creative aspects of being, invitations to transform our experiences and emerge from the reality grids we are currently trapped in. Across the world, there is an awakening and general yearning for these indigenous stories. Thanks to shamanic arts and local voices from the fringes, communities across the world are seeing a revitalization of the feminine, a rejuvenation of our multidimensionality, and the penetration of the politics of the normal. On the continent of Africa, we've had this sensitivity, thank goodness, for long, this sensitivity. Much thanks to the works of those courageous souls who stood and still stand today, people that you might recognize if you saw them in the papers. Chimamanda Adichie, author of The Purple Hibiscus, Chinua Achebe, author of Things Fall Apart. These people have been championing the indigenous route for long. However, this awakening has been slow. We still haven't learned the wisdoms of our own traditions. We still ache for more universities, more foreign investment, and prouder stretches of paved roads with cute little lines, cute little white lines in between and boundaried by yellow white lines as well. We've learned to pacify our revolutionary exception by speaking about poverty eradication, democratic education, like Manish would say, and infinite growth. But our disenchantments and failures are truly the portals to new unprecedented worlds. We have the right to own our wounds. The only way we can power alternative futures is through the energy of disenchantment and then reenchantment. We must pierce through the membranes of the familiar, of the approved, only by losing our coordinates and getting generously lost. Our hope for new landscapes will not lie in the center of the circle to which everyone has turned, but beyond its circumference, in the wilds beyond our fences. And so my life nectar, I don't like to use the common phrase wife or the common word wife. I like to call her my life nectar. She was, yes, I'm getting all from somewhere here. She was invited as well. Her name is EJ. She's a mix of all cultures, basically. She's Indian, she's Iranian, she's African, and she's English. So I'm not exactly sure how to categorize her. She was invited as well, and we, with friends across the world, came together with a dream of building a translocal network of re-enchantment through disenchantment. We called it Koru, and Koru is derived from the Maori culture of New Zealand. It means life is playful. Reality is multiple. There are no facts. There are only stories. Come to a field of magic. So we conceived Koru as a celebration of failure, so to speak, as a way of tapping into our disenchantment with the industrial, academic, consumerist complex, recognizing that the paradigmatic shift we need today are small changes in the ways we relate with each other. I will be talking much more about Koru during the workshop, but Koru hopes to connect what we call transition tribes or small collectives together into a tapestry of a politics of disorientation towards orientation, basically. I just want to end with this. EJ could not come here with me today because we're expecting a baby in July, our first child. And thank you. We're excitedly thrilled about this, and we're amazed about, we hope it to be a girl that doesn't look like me. And we're expecting her very soon. But in my quiet moments, I've had to think about what exactly the kind of world I would like to see my daughter born into. And I've gotten worried many times. But in some moments, I've had the burst of hope, thinking about the future that we can actually co-create together to bring this to light, basically. And in thinking about that, I'd like to conclude with a few words that came out of those moments of hope, those personal, reflexive moments of hope. When my children alight upon terra firma, I will gather them close and teach them a conspiracy. I will whisper to them a subversive tale under the nodding approval of many moons. I will stare into their starry eyes and tell them that the world is intensely abundant, so utterly full of everything we need that we do not necessarily need to compete with each other in order to thrive. I would tell them that there is more than enough for everyone, and that the idea that we need to fight with another person under a system, a monetary system that is based on scarcity and fear, is a lie and a story that we cannot continue to tell. I would jump up and down wildly, to get them to see that they are already relevant and they do not need to be beautiful or important or successful or popular or celebrated in order to be accepted and embraced. I will tell them that it is a good thing to learn. I'll tell them it's a good thing to learn. But in my time, learning was about grades and certificates and degrees and sitting on our bums for 8 hours every day to learn things that was approved for us to know, according to the approved ways of knowing them. When they laugh at my misfortune, I will draw them close and tell them everything is alive, and that we once used to treat the earth as a resource and humans as nails in a machine. When they start to fall asleep, I will stroke their curly hair and sing to them about the bravery of the ant, the haughtiness of the rock, and the beauty of their mother. As I tuck them into bed, I will smile and leave the fairies that attend them smiling in my wake. Thank you very much for listening.